There we go. Okay, right there. Face up in the
All right, 6 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order. I think the only change we'll make to the agenda, move the sheriff up to our first business item. That way you can speak your piece, and feel free to leave if after that. Otherwise, anything else? Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Say aye.
All right.
Approve, move on to consent items. Anybody has any questions on those at all? If not, take a motion to approve the consent items.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Consent items are approved. Thanks for correspondence, it looks like.
Yeah, the district received a thank you from the April Prince family, on behalf of her mother who passed away in a house fire. We also got a thank you from the student athlete's grandparent, who fell while attending a game at East Gym. She thanks our trainer, Travis Henderson, and Mr. Bond, as well as the female bystander for their assistance.
We did have another late, so I didn't get it on there, but a $2,800 donation to the lunch accounts, negative lunch accounts from the food pantry. They got a pretty sizable donation from Greg Young. So we appreciate
Thank you,
that.
food pantry.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll move on to public forum. So Sue, you wanna?
I may not be able to keep it quite as short as I did last one, but I promise I will do my level best. What I emailed you, and Monday was a very shortened day for me, so I got it sent just before I had to be gone most of the rest of the day. But what the email I sent you had to do with processing information basically and gathering facts that you can actually rely on that are usable. And the example that I happened to use for my analogy was polling, because we have polls going on all over the place here for a variety of reasons. And trust me, I taught a statistics class where we included this, so I've been through this quite a bit in the background here. Okay, first thing aspect to this is, how are you phrasing the question in the first place? So that's going to have an influence on how people understand what it is you're asking for, how it might relate to their life experiences and their current circumstances. So that makes a lot of difference. Then the options that you provide to them will also have an influence on the results of the data that you are collecting, in addition to various demographics because we each have different life experiences. We are in a different set of circumstances and points in our lives as to what we've had. That will have an influence on the response we have to whatever the question you're asking is and the possible options. My reason for bringing this up now has to do with current circumstances going on today. Where are you getting your data? How is the data being collected? How is it being processed? Because it has an influence on how you interpret it and use it and how reliable it might be. So this is true not only like for people in education, but for other professions as well. But also as individuals, as we make decisions in our own lives too, as to what we are going to do with this data regarding our lives. And if we are just going out online and collecting stuff, how reliable is this to support a position or a decision that we want to make? We're also having to deal increasingly with AI. Asking questions or using that is also based on the premise of how are you wording it in the first place and how is it being interpreted as to the response that you get and the data that's there. So if you don't develop some skill sets in asking some important questions, you may not have good quality, reliable data on which to base a decision. And these are going to be very important aspects of a lot of jobs moving forward in the future, in addition to decisions we make in our own lives. I'm in my 19th year now teaching for the University of Maryland. As I've explained previously, they use international standards, not our national standards, because they work very hard at developing thinking skills. So they have already, and they periodically review the concepts that they apply across disciplines, but they are also looking at this and developing various ways that we instructors who all have a variety of being able to work with what I just laid out for you. Not everybody is taught that stuff. But how do you help students to develop the skills that they need, not only for their lives, but to move forward in their occupations, and because these are going to be very important. I don't know where Baxter happens to be at with regard to these skill sets, both in interpreting the circumstances with which you're dealing with various students and circumstances and everything, as well as what you're using in the classrooms to help them to develop these skills. So I just wanted to make this available for you to think about in some way, shape, or form from wherever you're at. I can always provide additional information if you have to need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So go ahead and go with Sheriff Schutz here, share some information on the SRO program we've been looking at.
Yeah, so probably aware that we did receive a grant that we had put out for the city of Baxter. And one of the stipulations on that grant is we would have to be the full-time law enforcement for the city of Baxter, the primary, which we were awarded that this past Tuesday. The board of supervisors in the city of Baxter agreed to the contract, full-time contract law enforcement for Baxter through the sheriff's office. So we were awarded the grant of $125,000. Unfortunately, it wasn't the grant that we had anticipated because that would have been a hardship grant, which is the same grant that we put in for Little Sully, and we were awarded that. And what that is based on is the logistics of where we are in connection with where the school is. And the distance is about the same. So I don't understand why we didn't get the hardship grant, but no one in the state received the hardship grant. So instead of 100% fully funded for 3 years, we were only getting 125,000 to break up over 3 years. And then 4 years, 100% through the sheriff's office, the school, and such. So it comes out to about 41,666 every year that we can use that in the spring. So unfortunately, a deputy, full time with everything, everything that equips a deputy, is can cost, depending on insurance, between 130 to 146,000. So there was some gap in there with the funding we were receiving and what it actually costs. So it was back in October. I came up with Superintendent Mayor Bishop, and I apologize, I thought at that time it was made pretty clear that I was gonna need 45,000 from the city and 45,000 from the school to get this off the ground. And, cause I can't, the board's not gonna let me put money in up here when we have other school districts that are gonna say, well, then you need to give us the same amount of money as you're putting it towards Baxter. Yeah, there was some confusion, I think, there, and it came about last week that I was told that the school district was not needing the assistance of the school or the city, so that's when I inquired about, well, it's gonna be, that'd be 90,000. When I heard that, there was, I would say, miscommunication between all of us, and that wasn't the case. So that's kind of where we're at. This time, I can concede a little bit of costs in the future, the increases, but I can't absorb 45,000 on my budget. Essentially not here. But we would like to be up here. We feel we can accommodate many great things like we've done in Sully. So I encourage you, if you have any doubt in what we do, to reach out to Sully. When I went down there and talked to Mr. Dunsbergen about removing my SRO because I'm promoting him, he thought he was going to have a heck of a fight on his hands. He thought I was coming down to remove the program totally, but that wasn't the case. So very successful. We feel that it would be very successful up here. We are going to have law enforcement up here, 40 hours a week physically in town, but those hours are going to vary. It's not going to be 8 to 4, which you folks need up here. So it could be an overlap a little bit, possibly 11 to 7, midnight to 8, just depending on what's going on. So again, we're going to respond to all calls up here. We're at 24/7, but physically we aren't going to have somebody in up here for 360, 40 hours a week. That could be and they're going to be on a 6 and 3 schedule. So that deputy up here physically maybe isn't here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday because that's his days off. We have one deputy budgeted for that position that the board has given me. So that's for that.
Sheriff, I agree with everything you said. We talked a bit about an extension, maybe that being a possibility. Can you explain what that time frame would look like or what that might entail?
Yeah, so we could ask for an extension through the grant program, and we could possibly, get awarded a year or something, possibly. We need to delay things. Again, I don't want to throw out the bathwater here.
Right.
We want to be successful up here. We want to, because we think, school resource officers, they're valuable. And it just isn't, being a law enforcement here. We take part in programs, we do assessments here, the truancy, we handle those situations. There was just a whole laundry list of things we did down at Sully and keeps them busy. So if you do decide to go to a 10-hour day, that's not a problem. That person will work the same schedule. It's going, they're very flexible. We will, if that's the request of the board is to delay it, and we will put it in. I can't say 100% that we're going to be awarded the extension.
So that basically just push it back a year
Yeah.
with any time in there, say like.
Yeah,
Hey, we say, okay, this will all work out.
Yeah, the problem is, I have to put in my budget for that, or else I would have to, make the necessary adjustments. I have kind of pre-planned for it, so I have some things in line for it as far as equipment, vehicles, stuff like that. But yeah, it could be just an amendment to my budget if it was something mid-year or anything like that. I just kind of need to know in advance so I can make the necessary adjustments.
So with the program you have at Linville Sully, between the two communities and the school, they have one full-time officer, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. But then here with the work with the city, they would have a full-time officer with the city, and this would be the second officer.
Yes.
So
it's I encourage you to reach out to the city.
Yeah.
Again, I had a verbal commitment from Mayor Bishop in October that the city would give 45,000 towards this program.
Yeah, and
Fusion.
Like I say, there was some,
Yeah,
because we're understanding that it was 45,000 for the school and that. Whether it was the county or the grant or
Right.
somehow made up the difference,
yeah.
we can
yeah.
make that swing, but now if we're gonna have to do some.
So, at the time, Mayor Bishop had, I think the council they had some questions, of course, but No, I didn't have an opportunity to speak about it last city council meeting because the agreed that the understanding was the school was going to take care of it. So my talk to the city was done later. But it is a benefit because we could, they could have more coverage because down in Limbo, so like, yeah, he's assigned to the school, but if something happens in town, he's there. If there's an ambulance call in town, which they're in much need of here, during the daytime for help, he's there. Fires, something major that happens in the surrounding communities, he can leave the school and go do it, and then he'll return back. So it is a benefit for the city having that extra person in here. At one time, the city had 2 officers who were budgeted about $190,000, I think is what their budget was. And we're doing their contract law enforcement initially at $130,000, but it's going to raise because we're getting equipment instead of cash from them. So it goes up to about $150,000 in the 3 years would be the climb. So I think they're going to get more bang for their buck if they can give a little bit to this program to make things work, and they're going to have the extra bodies here. They're going to have, possibly the ability for us to adjust our schedule. If there's an event here at night that you feel it is necessary that the SROs here with a big basketball game or a football game or anything like that, even though we may have the deputy here, the contract deputy for a short or during that time, depending on your schedule, that person could be here also. So I think there's a huge benefit in getting 1.5 basically deputies for the amount of money.
And so,
I encourage that.
and so I think maybe part of the confusion like too was if I'm understanding this with what you're saying and what was proposed, whatever we needed that deputy for, and maybe it is only half the year, the city gets the other time. Is that correct?
No, well, the grade says it has to be full-time here,
Okay,
but they're able to leave for emergency, things like that. So really, if it's just a barking dog, or, just something stupid, low-level call, they're not gonna leave here.
So when school is out of session, say in June,
June, July, yes, that's where we kick in our portion of it, because we utilize, they're gonna be on the road or whatever, but most time it's days, there'll be a Monday through Friday days, so they could, we could, if that's the agreement that city says, yeah, we'll give some money, but we want those times in June and July, we can add extra on up here, that's not a problem, because he's kind of our extra person during the summertime months, and helps cover some vacations and things like that. But if someone, if it needs to be done up here, I will make it happen to where they're gonna get, 60 hours instead of 40 hours. Again, I encourage, I think city to be open to it. And again, I will do what I can in my budget to make this happen because I think it's very important in the community.
hey, well, yeah, I guess, if we can figure out this extension, like I say, we'll have to have some sort of discussion amongst ourselves.
So do you want to talk to the city first and see if they're willing to do it? If you're in a position to give the 45,000 this year, because I could, we can wait, I just want to make sure we don't pass up an opportunity for the start of the next school year to get this.
well, can you talk to us a little bit more about the timeline of the extension? Are we in a position right now where, hey, we gotta apply for an extension right now?
I think we have some time.
Okay.
We have some time. Yeah, the money's not gonna go away, it's slotted for us. And also, just to let you know, the portion that, a big portion of the county will be kicking in, will be in that 4th year.
Okay.
I'll be paying that 45,000, that extra money, and if I need to freeze you guys just at 45,000 each year with no increment increase for cost of living or anything like that, try to absorb that the best I can. And then obviously in year 4 is 100% paid through the city, the school, and the sheriff's office. So I'm not going to get my 45,000 out of that deputy during that time period, but it's my commitment to this program to do that. Yeah, just if it's going to take a month or 2 or something like that. I just need to know so I can get somebody training.
Sure.
We have put it out possibly for interest. We have some people that are interested. I'll tell you, if you guys go to a 4 10-hour days, we're going to probably have a lot of people interested. And we've got 3-day off, you know, it's gonna be a pretty big perk for them to come up here, but we're very, picky on who we send. We want the person that's gonna bring us success up here, just like we did in Sully, we know we get one shot at it. And, we wanna forget about the things that have happened in the past in town here with, law enforcement. And this person also will be, chosen and will be certified for DARE instruction, so, they'll be able to provide some things here. We won't have to bring somebody in off patrol to come and do it, they're gonna be in-house and be able to teach, just not fifth grade. They can teach high school there, they can do it all. I mean, they're up here, they're here to work for you.
Is, you say like Linville Sully, they've got one officer that's basically shared between the school and the city.
It's not really shared with the city.
Okay.
We respond, we do have a contract with the city of Sully,
Okay,
and it's not, it's just, they're not guaranteed any time we handle the calls.
okay,
So the city isn't kicking anything in down there because they aren't guaranteed. If they came to me and said, oh, I want this, this, and this, well, you're gonna pay for this.
I guess kind of what I'm getting at is if we did like the SRO and the city backed off their hours a little bit, is that something that's workable to you? I mean, they've said 40 hours, and then if we have full-time, would that be an option, or?
I'm having to pay for a full-time deputy out of this new, because I've had a budget and until the.
For the
revenue
city
for the
side of
city,
it.
So.
Okay.
it's gonna be- It would cut into what I'm doing, as far as, because it's gonna, I have to have a full-time person here and I have to hire a full-time person.
So it's a hole, basically we're in holes, it's either
Yeah,
one or
Yeah,
two,
and the grant
not a
says it
one
has
and a
to-
half
yeah,
or something
The
like
grant
that.
says it has to be a full-time
Okay,
person. Actually, it's the hiring of a position, so that's what the grant says, we have to hire somebody. And that's why I started out at that, beginning level of costs for a new deputy. If it was somebody that was gonna come in here, you know, with 20 years, it would cost a lot more, but it's for a new position.
Well, yeah, I think, like I say, we'll get some talk amongst ourselves, have a little better understanding of what we can do or what we can work out.
I appreciate the clarity too, and
Yep.
we'll laying those things out and
Also,
explaining a
people
little
have
bit.
been known to donate money. That's what we're kind of looking at the years to come after, Sully and stuff like that is donors, because they want to provide, a lot of people throw money, bigger businesses, things like that, throw money at this. So I would encourage that too. Not that there's huge industry, I mean, they have like Proline Welding. They have quite a big business down there, you know, I'm not saying that they're gonna donate, but it's one possibility. You know, that isn't as much, you know, they don't have, you don't have Proline Welding up here.
Themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, so feel free if you have any questions, I can come back up at any time.
So if you come up against the deadline that we need to know about, just let us know.
Because this is certainly something we want to try to make it work as well.
Yeah, I would just, you know, we'll be testing for deputies here, next Saturday, actually, for 2 positions, for bachelor positions, and then have 1 opening right now, so most likely I'd probably have to retest again, so you're just gonna have to kind of let me know. It depends too, if we get somebody certified, we will commit to having someone here, even if we have to look short and stuff like that, but I'd rather not. Give me enough time as well, we have to get somebody hired. And they do have to go through an SRO training, which is, they have one available that, we've just, sent someone to for the backfill of the Little Sully, in Altoona. So there's ones available, one around here. That one is in August, and then there's another one in Potawatomi County, which is way around the summer. We could send them to, so they have to have that certification to be able to.
Before they start.
And if it really ran into the big thing, we do have, you know, the sergeant that, is coming out. He is SRO certified. If he could possibly help out with it. Until that person got certified.
All right, well, appreciate you coming up.
Yes, thank you for listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think. Maybe we come up with some numbers, or if we think this is. 90,000 is a lot different than 45,000.
I think I've probably gone this path, but is there a creative way to take, like, because we're doing operational sharing, we can't consider this like contract support through some other
We've
widget or
tried.
something?
We already tried that.
Okay, I
There's-
figured,
I'll speak to some legislation in my report that could be helpful within this realm. But I don't know how soon
yeah,
we'll find out. The legislators kind of work on their own schedule.
or no.
Or, yeah. So I think it's a conversation for the board to have as far as we want to start a conversation with the city again. He clarified a lot of things over the last week that were not real clear. And from prior meetings. So,
I guess I kind of went into it when they first started talking about the Linville Sully model, which apparently there was more grant money than
yeah, they were
what we ended up
fully funded.
getting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But additionally, we thought that our portion was going to be 45,000. We didn't know it was gonna be 90,000.
well, yeah. Well, I don't think what was clear is we didn't realize the city was on 45, just the full part. That's because that didn't seem to make
Sense.
oh,
I mean,
it's a lot of money to chip in and not get much out of. So, I guess that's what we have to discuss is what level, we feel comfortable from ourselves, and I certainly would want to be the it's not a sports team, but the majority stake owner in this, right? Just because we want to ensure that the priority for that person is here, and I feel like if you start splitting funding, I think that's first question.
I think that part of it is if we have Mondays off and then you think about the summertime, I do think that the expectation should be that resource is here on those break periods as well, and that's what the city would be getting out of it, because otherwise we're giving the county.
Well, that was the other piece that I was trying to wrap my mind around as well.
Wait a second.
Because at the end of the day, if we are looking at 145, 360 days and talking about $90,000. That's expensive.
that's another position.
Not that I don't want
Well, I think, yeah.
the
it would be
financials
great.
up.
That's
Yeah,
the
we
way
have to
we are.
ask it.
That's the way.
And also, when you and I had this conversation today, is I also don't want to pass up this opportunity and then all this legislation passes. It's like, no, we can't, we couldn't, so.
Did it sound like if we want to do an extension, it's like, I was listening to testing days, he said March,
And then one, well, yeah, for the testing,
but with the testing, I was like, we have our joint in April, right? Could we have that discussion with the city? And then ask for an extension, or do you think that's kicking the can down the road too far? Like do you think he's wanting one within the next 30 days, like an answer on extension? Is that what your vibe was?
well, I think there's probably a little more flexibility with the testing piece than maybe there is with this SRO's program they have to go to, right?
Right.
But he did say there was one in Potawatomi County.
In August or something, right?
So, I
Yeah.
mean,
So that's,
I can
When I heard
clarify
that, I
testing
didn't-
piece with him and say,
But I also think that you probably want to, if you're gonna have a conversation with the city, that you probably aren't having.
initially, at least.
That's the, I think, obviously. We weren't ever thinking that big of a chunk, and I any of us thinks that's a good idea to cover that amount of money either, by on ourselves either, so.
I mean, we need to figure out what we're comfortable with. Is it, is it 60,000 or whatever, if the city can do 30 or
Right.
something like that.
And I'll just get into some of my stuff from my report. A lot of that's gonna be dependent on what happens to this legislation. There's a House bill that's kind of flown through that I think will pass the Senate too. That increases the operation sharing from 2 to 4 for the SRO position. So it changes our chunk from 16,000 to 32,000 after we get the operation sharing piece. Now, it's not a done deal right now. We'd had a conversation with John Dunwell about this where we brought this up. So I was happy to see that this was introduced as its own separate legislation and not included with some of the other legislation that could get shot down for various reasons. And this is, to me, this is a hard piece of legislation for someone to say no to. That's been evident because it's flown through subcommittee and it flew through the education committee 22-0 and votes yes. So, it doesn't have an effect on much other than it changes the weighting of the SRO. It doesn't increase our operational sharing from 21 to 25. So it's not like the state's kicking in more money for it. They're just saying, okay, if you take the SRO, that's 4, that's 2 less you can have somewhere else. So I'm optimistic that that piece of legislation will go through. There's been another piece of legislation introduced that would allow a district to fund this out of the management fund. That would really change things. And that's why I say I would hate to miss an opportunity and then both of these pieces come through and we can get this at a very reasonable rate.
Same time, we don't want to count on it either.
Exactly right.
Exactly.
And that's where the timeline comes in, right? Like how quickly will this House file get pushed through over to the Senate? How quickly will it come to the floor vote? How quickly will it be signed? I would be shocked if it doesn't pass, right? Because it's a standalone bill, increases weighting, has really no effect on anything. But at the same time, it's not a guarantee either. So I think you're right. I think we have to establish what's our number. But is it what's our number currently, or it's what's our number? Because that
Potentially.
certainly could change, right? And if we have someone else kicking in, or we can basically claim another 2 kids for it, it's another $16,000. I think that from my perspective, I would feel a lot more comfortable being at like a 2/3, 1/3 split with the city if we can. I also think that might go a long way with them as well, because I think that there's more value there. But I mean, I think that's obviously a
Right.
conversation.
I've got to feel that there's value to the city there. For, like you said, 150 days or whatever they're here, there's, I didn't realize vacations and that sort of thing, but there's still
But,
gonna
and
be like
that-
summertime
but is it
and that.
overkill?
That might,
Is it overkill?
but that might also be the question, because I think we need to clarify that with the sheriff is, okay, if it's 150 days here, the other 110 days, that's kind of what I asked them. Are they the city's employee?
Right.
I don't know that I got a clear answer on that.
Yeah, to me, it sounded like they're
So
use them at the county, like,
I would agree
because
with
of
that.
their,
Again, then where I struggle on the financial breakdown piece.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I feel like you're getting a pretty
Actually, saying either you're getting basically 3 months of free.
employee. Mhm.
But to your point, if we have some assurance that a lot of that time will be given to the city when school's not in session, I think that changed the conversation.
He was saying though, they're still kicking in about 45-50 to the thing, or the county.
Fourth year.
Well,
It's not the fourth year.
The grant's covering the other third.
So-
They're only kicking.
So if we're paying 90, who's paying the rest of that? So they're paying
The grant,
The grant.
grant, I'm sorry, I got you.
So the
Okay.
grant will pay
Okay.
40-ish.
Okay, but then okay, all right.
So the county's not, other than they applied for the grant, they're not really until the 4th year putting,
I think the original understanding from the funding standpoint, which made the most sense to me, looking back on it, especially based on the conversation, was 1/3 from the school, 1/3 from the county, 1/3 from the grant, right? But that wasn't. Certainly wasn't what was intended to be communicated.
yeah.
So yeah, I guess, I don't know. Think on this for a little
I
bit,
mean,
maybe.
we can establish numbers at both scenarios on where we feel comfortable. And step one, yeah, we have a fairly good idea. It's almost like we've had a conversation. But
In our sleep.
I don't know that we can take on full, unless things change legislatively. I think it would be very difficult for us to take on the full amount without making reductions somewhere else.
Which like I say, I think that's a really great. We have to cut somewhere else, or can't really, for one, two, we don't want to, so. So yeah, maybe I guess we'll just kind of look at some new numbers.
It's once set time, but
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah. Yeah. See what this is, like I say, when I was at that meeting last week, at their council meeting. I was we were under the impression that 5,000, yeah, we got it covered, and that's what I said, yeah, we got it covered. Then came out after that meeting that it wasn't 45,000.
some sticker shock.
Yeah, so that's kind of a little wrench in the hand, but. So yeah, maybe if we come up with some new numbers, we'll have if the city's even still interested in talking about it. If not, I don't know what we'll do, but.
We're still there with the city entertaining. I know we can't have the police on necessarily a schedule, otherwise everybody knows their schedule, but. They're gonna have a full-time person in town, 40 hours a week. I guess my question to the city would be. We're in session, he doesn't have to be in our building doors, but like, if he's in town, I mean, that's a small town, I mean, we can be anywhere in this town in 30 seconds, right? It's.
From what I could understand from what you're saying, the city doesn't control necessarily. over
Okay.
their
There were calls or
Okay.
something.
Right.
Okay. So, I just, yeah, it's hard, because I think Linville Sully is like. At least twice, if not 3 times the size. I can't dictate what the city does on their end, but it's just listening to him, it sounds like Linville Sully has one law enforcement in the school, and we're talking about not only one for the city, but one for the school, and it feels like the balance.
Can we
It
get by
does.
with, can we just get by with one?
I think
There you
that they're doing
Somehow.
2 very different functions, though,
They are. You're right.
in my opinion. But the SRO is more of behavior intervention
Sure, but
and presence, and
do we need him 10 hours a day, though? Like, what's he gonna do? I mean, that's my question. I mean, more, in the past, we have him here like over lunches and before and after school. I mean, when they're in classes. So then is that? You
Like I
have
said, I think
to be a
there's-
secretary?
There is some value, I think, just having somebody here, right? Whether they're roaming the halls or teaching a class, how much that's worth, I don't know. It's not worth the 90,000. But
Yeah,
if we can come up with part of that, figure out what value we'd see just having somebody here.
Sure.
For an incident or just. Gosh, instead of like behavior happens, at least somebody's here to.
more
be
than
right
like
away.
her behavior recognized or signs earlier. Is it that you teach there? If you can put that into the hexes, incorporate that in hex curriculum, and then they are providing teacher resources. I mean, I don't value of it, but I just seems like they've been proven to be successful.
I think it's something that we want to try to find a solution for sure, so we'll develop some numbers on our end and I can kind of work with that, so.
Else from anybody? Principals reports and.
I'll start and kind of share out our fast reading and math scores over the last screening period. In reading, we were 74% proficient building wide. That's comparative to 68% at Heartland AEA, 66% statewide. So we're above that threshold there. It's similar to what our fall screening data was telling us. So we're being consistent within our reading curriculum. So we're always asking ourselves the question, is our core sufficient at the grade level? And we're answering yes a lot of the time, but we're still not to that 80% number that we want to be for reading. So we're still striving for that, but we're getting really, really close. The highest it's ever been at the winter screening period is 74%. So we're making gains, although sometimes seems small, it's incremental, it's happening. On math, 84% building wide proficiency comparative to 70% at Heartland and 70% statewide. So we have met that mark of trying to meet 80% proficiency. And so we are answering the answer that yes, our core curriculum is having impact at almost every grade level. So those are great conversations to then now decide, okay, what are we going to do in response to those that aren't proficient, and then be able to set up our win groups and our plans for intervention to be able to meet the needs of all of our learners. So we do that obviously 3 times a year. And we see it that it's now impacting. So we did have an increase from the fall screener from 82 to 84% proficiency. Again, 84 is the highest it's ever been in the last 6 years of data. So good things are happening. Teachers are working hard. They're having collaboration daily, time set for them to collaborate daily, which allows them to be able to make decisions and responses to this data, which is ultimately what we're trying to do and accomplish. So the scores are telling us that what we're doing is working. So we'll just continue to try and get better at the work that we do each day. So
And losing your flow,
yes.
but all the new data tracking that you're doing, do you
Yep.
think that's attributing to it? And has the math curriculum changed?
The math curriculum has been consistent for the last 4 years. So I think that's a piece that's helpful. As you start to implement something, there's that there sometimes is that decline as you try and process new. As we become more accomplished with the curriculum, our teachers are getting better at it. They're learning the ins and outs of it. We review the curriculum yearly to make sure that what we're teaching is exactly what we want. So I think all those changes over time over the last 4 years have really gotten us to this point within math for sure. We also have, Deanne's position's kind of morphed this year. So she's doing more intervention in the morning, mainly revolving around math. So that could definitely be a piece of that, seeing that position change and evolve to a little bit more of an interventionist in the morning and more of an instructional coach in the afternoon. So there's different pieces that may feel like a piece, but having the data in front of your face and being able to look at it regularly is definitely a part of the process that we definitely want to contribute to some of the success for sure. So yeah, on that front, we like where we're at and like where the data is telling us we're going. Also do want to share that we do have 63 matches for our Big Bolt, Little Bolt program. Anna Travis has been ahead of that and doing that voluntarily over the last 10 years. It was very similar at this time last year with 64, I think, matches, but just an impressive number, really, that we have 63 middle school and high school kids that work with our elementary students at least once a week, if not a couple times, depending on the situation. But to have that buddy that they have, at the upper grades is really important to some of those kids. So kudos to Anna getting that all set up and to the kids at the middle school and high school that want to spend some time with our elementary kids. I do want to recognize Jill and Travis. It was National School Counselor Week 2 weeks ago. Just want to thank them for all that they do within our buildings. Jill, we also had Kindness Week last week. Jill set up some different activities within elementary to celebrate Kindness Week. Again, just to reiterate the importance of that character construction that we've been working on at the elementary, kindness being a big component of that. So just want to make sure that I recognize her for the work that she's done, but also Travis for all that he does for middle school, high school. We also I took Coach, he had at our WEVA did a pre-registration for preschool. We did to implement that over the last 2 weeks. We have that open until I think Friday. But as of now, we have 26 total responses for preschool for next year, which is right in line with what we have currently in preschool, 26. I would say that there's going to be at least a handful, if not more, to that as well for next year. So kind of just seeing the number of where we think we'll be in the fall. So somewhere close to 30, if not a little more. That's where I go.
Awesome. I'm going to talk a little bit more about our hall pass system because I know that was requested of me for this month, which is great. We've been implementing that for the last couple of weeks, seeing some really positive things, but kind of to back up a little bit and talk about some of the historical aspect of this. I kind of presented the idea to our student council back in October 4th to be exact. Kind of brought this to their attention that, hey, I kind of was thinking about wanting to move in this direction. I witnessed this type of program, exact same program actually at BGM last year when I was there a couple days a week. They were actually in the second year of implementation, similar size school, and just saw a lot of positives, which I'll talk about here in a minute. I know I've kind of brought this whole program up a couple times, but I really can't stress how positive it's been for us and just the positive reviews I'm getting from our staff. But number one rationale for this move was due to the concern about just student location in general. And this stemmed back from just conversations I had with Mr. Luther, even last school year. Coach was very honest about the fact that that was a concern of his and had been for years, just student where their locations are, movement of students, and just, for lack of a better word, just some wandering. So we're able to also set proximity control within the program. I can gladly show you guys. I mean, it's now open it up for questions here in a minute too, but proximity control, so we can set parameters. If there are students that we don't want to be out of the classroom at the same time, whether they be in the same classroom or in different classrooms, we can auto program those types of things. So even if a student's trying to sign out and go to a certain location, if another student is out, they're unable to proceed until that student is checked back into their classroom, which has been extremely helpful. Big area of concern has been restroom. For some reason, I don't know why, some of our high school boys in particular like to congregate in the restroom. So, we were able to set even just parameters as far as like how many students can be in the bathrooms, and we can set it so it's separate from high school and middle school as well. Just meeting with a family last week, even, that was a number one concern that they had, was like, oh, my child is basically terrified to go in the bathroom because they've gone to the bathroom before. And there's been 6, 7, 8, 9 high schoolers in there at one time, which would have terrified me as a middle school kid too, to walk into a bathroom and there's all these high school students in there just doing whatever. So that has been extremely helpful. The teachers have the ability to monitor and help navigate student usage, and we're able to like set individual goals with students as well. I've already had a couple meetings with students and their families as well. Like, here's students averaging X number of days out, or X number of times out of the classroom in a day, and they're averaging this much time out. I mean, do you really want your child to be out in the hallway or in the bathroom or whatever this much? And the answer's been unanimous. We want our child in class to learn. So that's been very helpful. Like I said, overall positive reports from teachers. And within that group, there were some naysayers. When I kind of brought this to their attention, we started doing some trainings like, this is just going to be another thing. Why are we doing this? And it has been unanimous. Everybody's on board with it. So just a faster, more efficient way for students to sign out as compared to just even using paper pencil in the past. And I can gladly show you how to do that. It's pretty simple. That's a lot of blabbing. Specific questions or concerns that you guys have. Like I obviously most of the students I've talked to, it's like, they don't really care. It's not a big deal, but I know some of you have fielded particular concerns as well. So obviously I want to try to be helpful in informing you of what's going on as well.
Yeah, I was one of the ones just asking, because
It's okay.
I got blindsided one day asking about it, and I thought, I'll get some answers for you. I'll ask you a question.
I bet.
I think one of the questions was, the concern was, well, two things, and like I said, if we can't talk about this in the public forum, so be it, but I think one of the thoughts from the parent was that kids were in the bathroom vaping and we're doing all this because of that, and my question was, are we, their question is, are we gonna solve that problem, or are we just gonna, like, it felt like, it feels like when you hear from the outside in, this helps a lot to hear this.
Sure.
When you hear it from the outside, from a high level, it almost sounds like we're punishing everybody because of, a half a dozen kids being bad.
That's fair.
It's what it feels like from the outside looking in.
Ray, I'd like to touch on that with a specific example. So there was an issue. It was sometime after I'd met with the student council. I'm like, okay, I'd even kicked it around with our building leadership team. Was this something we move on more quickly, or is it something that we just keep talking about, delay the process, maybe even be a year or two type thing? Because anytime you make change, it's going to be hard. And there happened to be a situation where I needed to investigate on camera. And it was kind of down the hallway by the bathrooms, nurse's office, kind of the east-west hallway. And I pulled it up on the cameras, and I had to watch it for like a 10-15-minute period. And I was looking for a couple of particular students. And honestly, it was right smack in the middle of a class period. And I was just overwhelmed by the volume of students that were out and about in the hallways. I mean, and that wasn't even something that I was really in question of, like, this is someone that is maybe a high flyer on my radar more often, but just even, just any average student that's just going to school here. It's just, my gosh, it's just like, what is this? Like some sort of mall walking competition? Like, what is happening right now? Like, I mean, I was just floored at that. And at that point for me, it was like, and I know that was just one example, but at that point for me, it was like, I think we need to start doing this sooner than later, especially when I had someone like Coach Luther telling me, even coming in, like, this is something I've never really been able to get a handle on in the old building even, and even, you know, transitioning to the new building, so. Just one example, but yeah,
Are we putting any limits on the kids as far as how often they can go?
yes, I can do that, and I have
But
started.
my
to-
question there, that's about probably where I would just feel a concern is, we can't really limit a kid from going to the bathroom. right?
Absolutely,
Like, there can never actually be no,
correct,
you can't actually go.
correct,
Is what it comes down to. I understand that we want to keep track of it, and the data hand back to a parent and all that, that's fine, but I just want to make sure we're not actually putting any
absolutely not.
area, I
The
mean.
restrictions or limits are gonna be the 2 to 5% of students that really need it. And even if they, and of course, if the student has like an emergency, we talked with our staff about that. If we're at the limit, but a kid's like, I really gotta go. You know what I mean? Like,
That's just me.
we're not gonna be crazy about it.
And then the other piece of it, like, is I just finally asked my kids, like, how does this work? And they said you were gonna show us, but they make a request on the computer, it goes to the teacher, and they have to approve it.
And then they're out.
Does that disrupt the class at all? Like,
So,
I feel like it would be disruptive.
And that, when I said I had some naysayers and staffers, that was the concern, like, oh my gosh, this is another thing, it's gonna take up time, like, I don't wanna be bothered, right? I wanna be able to teach and just do my job, and honestly, it has not. I have had 0 complaints, and I've asked every one of my staff members, like, how do you feel about this? It's been good, it's been helpful.
My only request would be to ask the students to, if they feel like it's disruptive, I know they're probably gonna say, I don't know what they're gonna say, but it's like,
Sure.
for the teacher, I guess it gives them some control of the situation. I'm thinking purely, I'm always on the teacher's side, I really am, but in this case,
Okay.
I just wanna make sure the kids are, it's what they want. And like, student council and everybody's behind it, I support it, I just got blindsided, it was 2 different people asked me a lot of questions, I'm like, I better actually pay attention and answer more questions, no, I'm coming
That's fair.
from that.
And
so.
please, if that happens again, encourage them to reach out to me. too.
I-
I'm sure you did.
I did.
I try to hear from everybody. But, I mean, I gladly will have that conversation with anybody, because I hate that you're kind of.
No,
shouldering some of that
it
to
wasn't
me.
like it was a bad conversation. It was more just like,
Just what's
let
going on.
me, I have a board meeting here in a week, I'll find out.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, anything else? I mean, I can gladly help with that. I mean, it's a pretty slick, I mean, it's so fast. Like, yes, one time, a couple times I've even just asked somebody randomly, like, hey, write your name, write bathroom, write the time down, just write it out. And for me to like do, I mean, it's like half the time. It's just more efficient too, which is nice.
Because to be clear, there was a system previously is that correct? Somebody has to
Yes.
request, they leave the classroom
Correct.
already.
So you
We're changing the
go to the bathroom.
mechanism.
Yeah, and then they would have like written down their name, time, where they were going, and then they'd sign back in when they came in. Yeah, pretty much every teacher had the same style of system. Yes.
It just gives broader control
Mhm.
because now the teachers know what another teacher student has.
Correct.
Because there was already.
I think one thing too, I hope that what this thing might accomplish is teach the kids some time management as well. I mean, I know times are tight
Absolutely.
between classes and stuff, but if you go to the bathroom when you're walking to class, right by the bathroom, rather than go to class and leave.
Absolutely.
So I hope parents have that conversation with their children also, is like, teach them you can't just, if I'm at work, like right now, I just can't get up, walk out, go to the bathroom. You gotta time yourself and, there's some responsibility there too on the students, I think, as well, that can be learned here also, so.
No, I appreciate bringing all that info, and I think it would be good to see how things trend over time.
Absolutely.
Do requests go down? Do we see traffic go down, or do we see people start ignoring it? Like, how are we gonna,
Mhm.
part of an accountability thing, make sure that every classroom is utilizing it?
So I can pull building level reports and then of course individual student reports as well, which is, it's only been a couple weeks, but I've already started to see a downtick, which is what we want. We all want our students in the classrooms. I mean, that's where the learning happens. That's why we're here. So,
I don't know if there's a reason for 7 different people to be out of the class or the exact same.
It's
distance.
crazy.
To use the restroom when we're in the sky, the school
It does.
size.
It takes the pressure off some of the teachers, because I mean, every teacher was pretty much unanimous, like, I only allow 1 student out of the class at a time, but when you have 20 some classes, and our kids, like, I don't know why, but especially with boys, the high school boys, some of them, They were organizing, they're hanging out. I don't get it. It's the last place I would ever wanted to hang out, but I haven't been able to crack that code yet, so I'll keep working at it.
You want to stop talking?
I know. It's something, it's something. I know.
You have to sign out.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, all right, thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to the 4-day instructional week. We've got the survey data there from the last couple, and I guess my thoughts, we just kind of go around and just hear what everybody's thoughts are before we do anything. Questions? Ideas?
Yeah, I can start, I guess the thing that really came out to me when we had that public meeting with the two superintendents that are doing it now is when they're filling positions, how many, I mean, because that's like for the last few years, I remember all the principals and that, it's like, we only got 2 applicants, or we got 1, or we're looking, you know, and man, if we can like double or triple our applicants, to me, that's great. I mean, it gives us something to choose from. And then the other part of it that I really liked to hear was the reduced absenteeism, both at the teacher level and at the student level. That's another thing we struggle with, is finding substitute teachers. So if we can do that, even if the learning's just equal to where it is now, to me, there's 2 benefits right there. And I agree with everyone that money savings is going to be negligible,
Right.
or probably none at all. And I'm just going into it figuring there isn't going to be any, but to me, that was 2 big points that were positive and really no downside that I could see. So that's my take on it.
No, you took the one on the pool of applicants. That one really jumped out with me. That story of the 26-year vet from Waukee that made the swap over to Sadell. That one really stood out to me. I guess the one thing I just kind of sit here and I think about is I think back 4 or 5 years ago to COVID. And out of the buildings, everything was closed, hybrid learning. You're in, this half of kids is at home this day, then they go back and everything. Parents were teachers. It was madness, right? I was the worst teacher known to man. Mom did not pass that on to me. But we adapted. And nobody likes change in any aspect of life. And that was scary going, you know, I got to teach my kid, you know, but parents rose up and they rallied around the kids and we made it through it. And I truly think that we could probably do it with this too. Change is hard, change is scary, but on the flip side of that, I'm this is just me talking. I'm kind of excited to maybe be at the forefront of this movement before everybody else gets on board with this, you know? So, those are the couple things I guess I thought about. Yeah, I guess that's kind of where I stand. So.
I agree with that. Everything has sounded really positive. I've reached out with my thoughts where do we think we are ready? Like from an administrative perspective, are we going to be able to have a plan in place? Feel confident that we're going to have the resources and the time to prepare adequately to roll this out and give it the best face it can, because as you said, change is scary. We do have a population that is opposed to this, and we want to make sure that we give them the best opportunity to see this succeed. And so those are some of the things and assurances that it's already kind of been planned, that if there was a yes, they know the time and ways that you'd go about preparing for it. So I guess that assuaged some nerves. I think I'm just gonna have to call. There's all good that's come out of what we've heard.
Chris, on that survey, the latest one you sent out, was that just to parents and guardians? Okay. I was just trying to match up the response
Yeah.
numbers, so it came out basically, okay, so. One thing I've said, really just to myself, but every time I look at those surveys, I see the neutrals, not just as neutral, but I really kind of throw them into the positive side. You're not a no, maybe they didn't come out and say yes, but they're not a no, so I kind of put them in with the positives, right or wrong, that's how I'm doing it, and I just think it's kind of an overwhelming, it's more than just majority. I mean, it's hard to look away from that. I think I should said it best. I mean, you do have some no's out there, and I definitely can respect the no's, and I want to make sure that we're not losing students because of that, and we're not upsetting families in the district because of that, but I kind of going back to what Tyler said, I strongly believe that we're going to adapt. They're going to find the benefits in it long run. I hope we actually, if we're some of the first ones to do this, we actually bring more people into the district because of it. And we actually find a way to grow because of this decision. I know there's not hard data that says that, but I guess it's a gut feeling. But it's a belief that we're actually this will help us.
I don't think you're alone in that thought. We've seen a larger school district close to us now bring it to the forefront of theirs, and I think it's, I think they're anticipating a mass exodus in students maybe, and so they're trying to maybe flatten the curve there with that. So I think I don't think you're alone in that thought. Also, we talked about expenditures and things like that in this situation, and normally you wouldn't see this, but there's a couple of specific situations that we have here where there were specialized areas, but we only have the one teacher, and so we ended up having to pay them bonuses, two different teachers bonuses, because they could drive that conversation. And so in that sense, if we have more than one teacher, then those bonuses go away. Just letting you know, the bonuses have to come out of general fund. We don't have a choice about that, so in that sense, maybe we don't have to put that up anymore.
Well, I thank Chris for kind of bringing us up and doing all the work he's been doing over the last 4 months of lining up surveys and superintendents and meetings and stuff, so appreciate that. I was going with Ray here on looking at the numbers. I kind of combined the two and did the average of the two. So I just did parents. So there's 487 responses between the two surveys of parents. An average of those two surveys, there's 59.7% in favor, 22.7% opposed, 17%, 17.6% that were neutral. So then I do think that neutral is positive, but being fair, I just split those neutrals in half. So if you split that in half, that gives you a 69% in favor, 31% opposed of parents. That's splitting neutral, splitting those neutrals. If you give them all if you all say they're in favor, you're pushing closer to 80%. So those are big numbers. I mean, I've kind of, my mind was thinking, when we pass bond, that's going to pass bond issue right there for the community. And from John saying it probably curved even, kind of go to Tyler's point, like to be proactive rather than reactive here. If we can be a leader, I think our school could be a leader, and we could be the people that are coming to us to look for answers next year or 2 years from now. I think we've got good leadership. I think we'll be ready for it.
And you're not losing any instructional hours.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that was just kind of I'm like looking at numbers. Those are, like Ashley said, there are some people that are against it, but there's always somebody against it. Just try to do the best you can.
Yeah, because we want to be very sensitive because we don't have to do this, but I think we're starting to sense that we should really entertain it and look to do it because of the benefits of it and where things are headed. And yes, it would be great to have a larger population of applicants and we might end up having a problem with having all these really, we're used to employing people with not very many years of experience, so maybe we'll be in a whole different situation because we have people with years of experience.
So just decision to make on which one to hire.
Well, that plus how that changes. When you have
That's fair.
actual retention, like you're
Yep.
seeing, especially in elementary school, and see that retention, but anyways, that's the kind of problem that you want, because you create that consistency, like 4 years of a curriculum with a core of teachers that have been teaching that
Right.
curriculum, you start to see the results, and that's the point that we're trying to get at, is you retain your teachers, you have better opportunity to see the results go in the direction that you want them to go in, and that's the core of what we're trying to do here.
Just looking through some of my notes from the superintendent, on the superintendents were here, they mentioned decreases in the student office referrals, so your behavior hopefully getting better. Teacher absences, both of them said they were down 50%. I'm guessing that's just doctor's appointments and things that they got to take off for.
Yes.
Hopefully it can be moved to whatever day they're having off. They both said there was either an increase or steady assessment growth, like the fast testing that we just talked about. I mean, that's data right there that they said that's going up. Fewer missing assignments. They both said that, that number, say 60-70% in favor, that eventually they've seen that go up even since they first started it.
Right.
So increase applicants for positions like the hard to fill positions, like for special ed, facts, things like that. Yeah, I think there's probably going to be things we have to keep an eye on. I noticed, the nutrition fund sound like that might be, but it's kind of a separate deal, but at the same time,
I think we'll be okay.
just say, make sure the schedules are right. Keep an eye on those fast testing and screener scores, activity transportation, if that's going to be anything we'll have to do, but something to keep in mind on that day off for those school students more than likely. Yeah, I think that meeting kind of opened my eyes a little bit, having those guys with that experience there.
Good to hear from you.
That was a traditional guy, 5 days a week. But
As far as community input goes, I haven't had a tremendous amount come to me. But the conversations have been fair and mostly positive, but really legitimate questions about. But I think we've all seen those come across, but just to formally say it, I haven't heard people that are just outwardly opposed to it come to me, or anybody that's been super passionate about this should not happen. And again, the other community excited aren't faithful Sim here tonight to voice any further opinions, and we've had plenty of opportunities provided, so that's another factor that I'm considering.
So I don't know if anybody has anything else to add, or if you're talking to principals, that the retention and hiring, you can see it in their face, they're just like, oh, it's so hard, and you can see it and feel it.
I don't think we've shared with the group that we've had two cold calls asking if we're hired. Already.
Just from
One from just
rumors that,
I think so, just referring the area.
from rumor. From the area.
And I can say the high school science teacher that we did hire, I had to kind of coerce him to even just come talk to me. And when he came talk to me, I just said, listen, it's not a done deal, anything like that. This was back in early December. I said, I think we're going to be trying to move in that direction. And I mean, his ears perked up. And the next day I called him back and said, do you want to come interview or not? Because if not, I got to move forward. He's like, I'm interested. Let's do this. So his interest level went from, yeah, I guess I'll come talk to you, to I'm signing on the dotted line real fast. And I'm very, very, very excited about that hire. So just throwing that out there. I did. I maybe jumped the gun a little bit on that to even throw that out there to somebody, but I told you flat out, I said, I don't know, this isn't, it's not even close to a certain thing, but so for what that's worth.
Well, I guess if there's no other discussion.
I think the only other thing I would say, if we move forward with it, I'm sure we will talk a lot about what the plans are. But we also need to define our criteria for evaluating it on an annual basis, but we'll have the 30, 60 day, whatever, but make sure that we know all of those data points that we're interested in gathering. So we're prepared to do so and talk about it in a ongoing fashion.
Yeah, constant. You. Make a motion to approve the 4-day school instruction week for the 25-26 school year.
I move, we approve a 4-day instructional school week.
Okay,
I'll second.
favor say aye.
Aye.
Say no. 4-day school week's been passed.
You should put that. Northrop,
Yes.
Tyler Akins.
Yes.
Ashley Kutcher,
Yes.
Ray Hauser,
Yes.
Corey Robinson.
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you all for
Yeah.
your efforts.
A lot of good information. I think that helped enable decisions. Appreciate it. Okay. The fun stuff. Yeah, policy.
Just not reading.
This is one that comes up for review annually. It just sets the provisions for our long-range assessment. And it talks about our SIAC committee and those types of things. So it kind of just sets how we do those things.
We have a motion to approve the board policy for long range needs assessment.
And wait a second.
Yes, and we won't use, since there's no changes, we'll waive the second reading.
So moved.
Second.
Favor say aye.
Uh,
Approved. 101 budget guarantee.
You
want to take over?
You bet. Is it going? So we approve this every year, our industry leaders, recommend that we prove it whether we qualify for it or not. As of right now, the SSA hasn't been set yet, but as of right now, it doesn't look like we're going to qualify for it. But we'll still go ahead and approve it, and if we don't need it, then they just throw it in the trash. But if we do need it and we don't approve it, then we're just out that money. So, do y'all need a refresher on what it actually is, or do you remember? Do you remember what it is? Okay.
I remember this year.
You what?
I remember this year.
Good job. So it's just a short resolution, and it reads, resolved that the Board of Directors of Baxter Community School District will levy property taxes for the fiscal year 25-26 for the regular program budget adjustment as allowed under section 257.14 in the Code of Iowa.
Need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve that 101% budget guarantee with the resolution ordinance duly stated.
Second.
The roll call vote.
John Northrop,
Yes.
Tyler Akins.
Yes.
Ashley Kutcher,
Yes.
Ray Hauser,
Yes.
Corey Robinson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Title 1.
Haas, do you want to speak to this a little bit or not really? I can do it.
Just
We
talk
can
about
just approve
Title
it.
I.
Just the program and,
Yeah, so Title I for us is Cheryl. She's our intervention reading teacher that we also correlate with title. So she does two separate pieces of that. Intervention within reading is one piece of her job, but also the other piece is to pull title groups. So we pay Cheryl with that title to be able to do the intervention pieces of it.
Motion to approve the 25-26 Title I program.
Second.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I figured that kind of
you're
was
done.
what we kind of moved up to the, so we'll just kind of, yeah.
You're done.
Discuss the SRO.
So the next one is the resolution of the Board of Education approving the application for applying for a Prairie Meadows Community Betterment Grant. So it's Dr. Anderson who's applying for it, and it's for some whiteboards, I believe, in the elementary. Is my
Smart
understanding.
boards.
Smart boards, sorry. And,
got one.
my understanding is around 75, what'd you say?
He has.
I said, we got
Yeah, wait.
we got whiteboards.
Okay,
We don't have chalkboards.
sorry,
Go say you want chocolate?
sorry.
Oh, buddy.
Gotcha. She did just reach out to me today, and, thinks it's right around 75,000 that we're at before. We don't know if we'll get it or how much we'll get. I do know from applying from this grant before that there are a lot of people applying, but they do have quite a bit of money to give, so. Anyway, they were asked us to approve this resolution, which reads. Whereas Prairie Meadows has community betterment grant funds available that target arts and culture, economic development, education, and health and human services. And whereas the Board of Education is supportive of these applications for the betterment of their district. And whereas all applications from the school district will be submitted to Prairie Meadows by February 28th, 2025 deadline. Now therefore be it resolved by the Baxter Community School District Board of Education that the following community betterment grant applications are to be submitted to Prairie Meadows for the February 28th, 2025 deadline. Just need a motion.
Motion for all that.
So moved.
That's a mouthful.
Can you read that again? I'll second.
On that, did they, we've done that before, but do they limit it to just one from the community, or does that kind of, the reason I ask is I think Natalie Mormon was working on one too, and I don't know
I
if there was
did,
talk in the past to kind of get together and have either the school apply or
yeah. So,
whatever entity and kind of take turns at it, but maybe more than one can apply, but maybe they only gonna pick one from a community.
I think there are different categories
Okay.
of which you can apply. Like the one that I applied for last year with Prairie Meadows, it was really more of a joint venture grant, like through city and school. Like I applied for money for trees that the derecho had taken out of the sports complex. And so that really wouldn't fit this structure. So I feel like there's
Okay,
separation. So, and they were very apologetic that we didn't get it. They just said they have so many people, or so many people that are asking for it.
okay.
We have first and a second. So. Favor to approve the resolution?
Doesn't say this one needs a roll call.
It
Oh,
is
yeah, sorry.
John Northrup,
Yes.
Tyler Akins,
Yes.
Ashley Kachira.
Yeah.
Ray Hauser,
Yes.
Roy Robinson.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're going to open enrollment.
We got an open enrollment from Ryan and Danielle Van Manen for their daughter Peyton, who goes to preschool here for the 25-26 school year from Newton.
Motion to approve that open enrollment in.
Well, motion to approve the open enrollment in.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Say no. Enrollment approved. Personnel.
So we have a resignation and voluntary early retirement application from Mr. Dennis Vaughn, which includes his coaching and all positions here at the district. We also have a resignation from Kristen Luther, effective immediately as middle school ELA reading teacher. As that was planned, we knew that was happening. We also have a resignation from Anna Messerly as VOAG teacher, FFA instructor, and middle school girls basketball. Take those separate. I mean, those all together.
We have a motion to approve those resignations. Early retirement.
So moved.
Second. Favor say aye.
Aye.
Resignation approved. So we have a couple contracts here.
Yep, so then we have the Danielle Myers as middle school English reading and writing teacher. She was the one, if you remember back, that we did an MOU, a memo of understanding, because she was still going through her classes. She graduated at midterm, and so now has a contract, or her teaching license and took over for Mrs. Luther. We also have hired Robert Yeldman as assistant middle school softball coach for this year pending proper certification.
Through those contracts.
Motion. Second.
Say aye.
Aye.
No, contracts are approved, and we also have an employee incentive package that will be effective at the end of this fiscal year. See details, we don't really want to talk about it with personnel issues and everything, but just need a motion to approve that incentive package.
I'm about to approve the incentive package that's laid out.
Second.
Fair to say aye.
Aye.
Say no. Package approved. That's it for facilities grant transportation.
Real quick question, just while it's here, are we hiring, did we hire a full-time or a head coach for softball middle school? I know we did last time for high school. Are we doing
Head
Head,
high
yes.
school softball.
We have had high school, but are we doing head middle school?
We are, Corey is doing both. Remember?
That's what I thought.
Corey.
Well, I thought I'd heard that, but I didn't know. I didn't think.
I thought he works in that situation. We can, this might be with.
It is, but he's never coached before, so normally we wouldn't put them in a head coach situation.
Offered and Corey the same contract he had last year for that position.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't, those over, maybe they don't overlap. I always thought they had games that overlapped.
Some are in the morning, middle
Yeah.
school's in the morning, and then high school's in the evening.
It's always-
For mine, academic decathlon, they've qualified for state competition out in Waterloo. We were approved an overnight stay for them. We are getting tight on student contact hours. We have 1091 right now, so we have 11. So as a buffer. Legislatively, not a lot. I talked about the SRO, school start date, haven't heard anything on that. SSA, I'm just telling you, it's probably gonna be 2%. I'm hopeful it's 2.25, but I would not hold my breath on that. There is one other piece of legislation that was proposed that affects us here. It would basically outlaw standards-based grading in grades 6 through 12. So, right now it's out of subcommittee. Obviously, that's quite a bit of what we're doing. So it's a bill that we're following kind of closely.
A lot of schools.
That's the majority of the schools. probably.
Yeah, there are quite a few that do. So
What's the reasoning that's, oh, it's just.
there's
it's
no
so-
reasoning with it.
Oh, cool.
They do better.
At least it was well thought out.
I guess thinking about facilities. Did we get any headway with the parking lot out there? We,
Oh,
the complex.
Aspen, I'm about to get a hold of Aspen.
Oh, gosh, those people, I've called them a couple of times. I have not talked to anybody yet. I will follow up on that again. No, I've
Okay.
left a couple messages, but they have not been real responsive to me.
So I believe that that's actually Alliant Energy. And they contracted Asplund because I got a recorded message on my voicemail at home saying that they were gonna be in the area to trim trees. And then the next day Asplund shows up out there.
Okay,
And
I'll try
normally-
a lion.
Normally Alliant would call us and say, hey, can we park trucks there? But I never got a call.
Interesting. Okay. No, because I called Asplund out of, I think they're out of Omaha, and I've called a couple times, but have not gotten a response to them,
Yeah,
so
you might
I'll
wanna
try a lion.
1-800 might want-
Thanks.
Yep, you got it.
Let's see, so anybody have anything else? Okay, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Quicker.